Harold Bill Christenson. I have been in Alberta all my life practically, and I worked for the American Legion for over 50 years here. I, before that, worked for the railroad for 10 years, and I was in the military for 2 years active and 2 years with the Guard. I came back and went back to railroad until 1958, I guess it was, and I went into the Legion here in '62, and I worked here till I was 65 years old. I'm 85 now. I always liked the Legion. I've been working with them for many years. I take care of their honor guard, all the military funerals we have, and I take care of their bingo, bar bingo. That's about it.
So, how many siblings do you have?
I have 4 children. I have a wife, and we still have, we have a son here in town. We have 2 daughters in Rochester, Mayo, and we have a son-in-law, Hy-Vee over there. We have a daughter in Ohio. Works. She's not a registered nurse, but what is it? 2-year college anyway. But she's in Ohio, and they're all married. Well, one isn't married right now, but they have been married. They have families of their own, of course, and we have quite a few grandchildren. We have 9 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren, so we have a big family.
How old were you when you enlisted?
When I enlisted, 18.
And what was that date?
It was June 16th, 1948, and my friend and I were working down here at Weyerhaeuser, and another friend that was in the Guard came by, and he said, "You guys should join the Guard. It's pretty good deal. Get part-time, good work, and check every month. I think we got about $10 or something like that, and we met every Monday night, and it was like 3 hours." And we had 2 weeks of camp in the summertime at Camp Ripley in Minnesota, northern Minnesota. And then we trained inside the arbory with classes and close order drill, and the weather permitting, we'd be outside in the parking lot drilling. And there was a lot of classes and calisthenics and things like that. And we did that until we were called in regular service in January of '51. We knew we were coming in December. The Korean War broke out that year in '50. So we knew we were coming in, and they waited until after Christmas holidays. So we went in January 16th. Of 1951, and we loaded in. We marched from the armory down to the depot down here at Rock Island, and loaded in train, and eventually we got down to Camp Rucker, Alabama, and that's where we were stationed. And we left here with about 50% of our strength, as far as personnel. And we filled up down there with draftees and recruits. And so we got up to full strength down there. And we trained again. We trained them. And that was all summer. In the fall, then they started asking for people to go overseas. They didn't ask, they told us. They called it FECON, Far East Command. So we got a lot of our people that we had, recruits and draftees that we had trained. That's where they went. And he started asking for the sergeants, the top 3 graders, I say, and that's when I got it. There was quite a few of us from Alberta here that went about that time. I went with my Sergeant McKay and a Sergeant Matson, and we left. Sergeant Matson had a car, so we drove back here. We had a delay on route, so we drove back here, and we had, I think it was like 10 days before we had to report to Camp Stoneman. That's in California. And so we came back to Alberta. And we were here as long as we could. I remember my first plane ride was from that. We flew out of Minneapolis to San Francisco, all 3 of us. And we got into Camp Stoneman just about, we weren't late, but pretty close. So we stayed there for, I had an aunt and uncle out there at Oakland, so they came and got us a couple of times and took us, we were there maybe a week or 10 days, I suppose. And then we started getting orders when we ship it out. And we had to check the bulletin board every morning, of course, see when. And Joe and Marlon Matson, they went on one ship and I went on another. I was on USS Pope and they were on, I think it was a Miggs. So they left before I did, a day or 2 before. But the Pope was a little bit faster, so I got over to Japan before they did. We landed in Japan, in Yokohama. It was right close to Tokyo there. And we were at Camp Drake. It's really a Camp Drake there. So we were stationed there. And it's a temporary station. We had classes on, we knew we were going to Korea, of course, and they orientated us on the conditions and more or less what to expect, you know. They told us most of it. But then we loaded on a train across Japan and loaded, went to Sasebo. That's another city on the north end of Japan. And we loaded on, we were there maybe 2 days, 3 days maybe. We loaded on another ship that took us into Korea. We went into in different ships again. We weren't on the same ship as 3. But we went into Incheon. Incheon has a very high tide, one of the highest in the world. So we had to go in, there was no docks. Incheon was all leveled, you might say. So there's no docks, no piers. So we had to go over the side of the boat and down into the landing craft. And there we went into the shore. One landing craft at a time, you know, there's quite a few of them. And from there we were lowered into, there was no resistance there at all, you know, it was all taken by that time. We got into, they put us on a train again. It was, I remember it was a narrow gauge train in the evening. A lot of them had to stand up, I remember. And it was about maybe 30, 40 miles, 50 miles maybe to Seoul. And there that's where this third replacement company was. And there we got assigned to that. And we're in the third replacement company until you got orders of what unit you're going to be in. We knew it would be a 3rd Division. We weren't sure what regiment or what company. And I got assigned to Company A of a 7th Regiment. And my other 2 buddies, Joe got assigned to Easy Company of the 7th Regiment, and Marlon got assigned to Fox Company, I remember, of 7th Regiment. So we were all in the same regiment. And we were in that rifle company, and we got assigned, we were going to move up. So they came and got us at night. And evening, everything's at night, you know. So we went up there. They took us in as far as they could take us. They were on 3rd Division's on line then. So I remember how scared we were. We could hear small arms fire. We could hear artillery and flashing and things. Man, this is going to be something, you know. And we were met down below the mountain that we got to walk up by a rock soldier. We had Korean rock soldiers with us. And they escorted me. I was one of the first ones, I remember, Able Company, so me and maybe 3 or 4 other guys went up to our assignment. And the other 2 guys got into their Easy Company, the Fox Company, at the same night. And there we were in a combat situation, but it was, at that time, it was pretty quiet. I mean, it was, you hear small arms fire and things, and there's always artillery, but we got some, if I remember right, we got some time in the rear there. We had maybe a week or so in back. It was like a division time. I'm trying to think of the word, I can't say it. Anyway, then we got back up in line, and we got into some action where that was November, yeah. Little Gibraltar there got overrun, and that's when my friend Marlin he was killed. That bothered me a lot. A long time. It still does. That night, the Chinese overran us. And his company was overrun by Chinese. And there was a lot of artillery, and he was really killed by a direct hit on his bunker. We were in, it's like a hole in the ground, but bunkers with sandbags on top and everything. I didn't find out for sure until later, but he was killed that night. And we had to defend ourselves, you know. But we finally got the Chinese off that mountain that that Marlin was killed. And we got more or less established the same line we had before. And I went fine until December. Then Joe McKay, my other friend there, he was, we had a lot of patrols. And to go through, out to, on patrol, you had to go through a minefield, and they were marked. And you had to be real careful. Nobody made mistake. And well, it happened that they were going through, and Joe was a master sergeant. He was following lieutenant, and lieutenant had people in front of him, but the lieutenant stepped off the path a little bit, and he stepped on a mine. And lieutenant lost his leg, and Joe got hit real bad. So that was in December, middle of December. So the two guys went over with, in less than 2 months, they were gone, you know. And then from then on, I was promoted from machine gun squad to the platoon sergeant, which in charge of the whole platoon. There's about 40 some men, you know. But we had a lot of patrols, so we had to assign men sometimes to go on patrol, and I had I didn't have it every night, but sometimes we had to assign men maybe every other week to go on patrol. And I was assigning. One night, I remember they needed a mortar along with them, assault mortar, they called it, to go on patrol, and they're going to establish outposts out there. So I kind of took turns with, try to be fair with the guys and tell them that, well, he went last week, so you go this week, or, you know, and it got to be, his name was Chico. It was his turn. But he was supposed to go rotate home. And I said, well, you don't have to. I want to. And he got killed. And we had to retake that outpost. They got run over. And I had to identify a couple of them. One was him. And it's a bad part of war. After that, it was it kind of, the winter set in and got cold, and the Chinese kind of quieted down, and we did too, of course. So our biggest concern was, a lot of it anyway, was keeping warm. We were never in any buildings or anything, you know. We were in holes in the ground, like, we got a picture of it there, of bunkers that had sandbags, you know, which were better than being outside. But sometimes when we went on patrol, we had to stay out all night, and that was pretty tough when it was cold, trying to keep warm. And I remember one night especially, we didn't have any sandbag. We didn't have any sleeping bags, and we were trying to keep warm, and we kind of piled together like you see animals do sometimes. But a lot of patrol was mostly reconnaissance, where you were looking for any action out there, anything that enemy was doing, and it was contact sometimes, all right. But in the spring, we were hit once or twice in the wintertime, but nothing like we did in the fall there. And in the spring, it was pretty quiet. They had a ceasefire about that time, and we had about 2 weeks of that, there was no, it really strange for us. We could see Chinese in front of us where you couldn't see them before. They were always underground, you know. They were always hidden, of course. That was different, but the armistice or the ceasefire was broken, of course, and we went back to full alert again and patrols and stuff like that. But it was mostly just after that. I went home in May, first part of May. I came back from you rotated, you know, they had a point system at that time. Or if you were in a combat situation, you got 4 points a month, I think it was. And if you get 36 points, you rotate home. So I got that, and waiting for orders to go, and it finally came, and I went down through by train down to Busan, and rolled over the ship and went into Sasebo again, and we had a shower. We didn't get many showers over there. I think I had 3 showers all the time I was over there. I changed clothes 4 times in 9 months. It was really something. When we got to Japan, they treated us real well. They said, "What do you want? What kind of steak you want?" You know, we had sea rations most of the time. You know, once in a while they try to get a hot meal up to us if things were quiet, and then we went down like maybe a platoon at a time down below the mountain we were on, and the mess, which is the kitchen, would serve us what they had. That was quite a treat for us. So after I had about 9 months of it over there, and my discharge was coming up, so I got back to came back on the U.S. MiGs from I went to Yokohama again. We rolled on U.S. MiGs, and it took us 15 days, I think it was, to get back. And I landed in Frisco, and there was a band there. I mean, the Salvation Army or something, some kind of band there. I remember my aunt and uncle they posted who was coming on a ship, and they watched for it, and they were down there too, which is pretty nice. And I was there maybe about a week, I suppose. And we loaded on train again and went back to McCoy, Wisconsin here, and I was discharged from there June 22nd in 52. That's about it, except I had a few good experiences. It wasn't all bad. Oh yeah, I had fun in Japan with my friends. We go have beer, you know, and really strange. We weren't expecting something like that. We went to a place that had beer and had liquor, and there'd be a Japanese girl sitting by you know, and they friendly, of course, but they couldn't communicate. but you'd buy them a beer probably, and then 3 or 4 of us would take turns by maybe 3 or 4 beers. I remember one time there was the girl that sat by you would usually take your money and go up to like a cashier. We called her Mama-san. And I gave the girl $20. That's quite a bit of money in those days. And she forgot to come back with my change. Oh, that was something. I remember that. Yeah, but we rode in a rickshaw over there, humans pulling you in a 2-wheeled buggy, where it is. And it was fun just being there. I mean, going through Japan was quite an experience because they were still struggling with World War II, and this country was in pretty bad shape yet. I remember little tots running around without any clothes on. I mean, and it's things you don't forget anyway. But I had a lot of fun in the service. I had down Rucker training with the guards and all the guys I had from Elberly here. We had many parties, many many good times, and a lot of those guys went overseas. We trained with we had World War II veterans with us a lot. That they were the sergeants. When we first came in, they were the sergeants. They were training us, and we had fun with them. And all their stories they had, of course. We had a lot of fun on passes. We go down. Camp Rucker was pretty close to the Florida coast, so we went down to Panama City, beaches, And my wife, my fiance, came down with a friend of hers, another, her fiance was a friend of mine. He was down there too. There was 3 gals came down there. One was married and 2 were engaged. And we had a week with them. That was kind of nice. We had before we went overseas. Of course, we came back here, like I say, before we went overseas too. But you remember those times when in Florida, the beach, swimming, a lot of fun. Yeah. I was discharged in June 22nd, and we had to come home. It might have been the last part of April when I left Korea, because we spent some time in Sasebo, and getting back, it took 15 days to get back on the ocean. Pretty slow trip, but then I had to come back. It took a couple of days. I think it took 3 days to come back from Frisco to Camp Ripley. So, and I was in Ripley maybe a week before I got discharged, something like that. Quite a few of the guys Forey here, he was in the 3rd Division too. I think he was discharged in Ripley. Quite a few of the people were discharged at Ripley. It's still used over there a lot.
Can you describe for me just a little bit more, what were your job duties while you were in Korea? What was day-to-day?
Before I went?
Well, while you were in Korea.
While I was in Korea. My responsibility was taking care of the platoon. I mean, as far as, the platoon is spread out on the line, like the bunkers were maybe, it varied some, but they were maybe 10 yards apart or more, So I usually had to go and visit every one of them. And when every day. Be sure that everything is okay. And I had to inform them, of course, like when the patrol was coming up. When I would meet with the officers, and they would tell us to tell the men that who is going to be going and what is going to be reconnaissance or whatever. So that's another responsibility we had. And of course, back in reserve, when we were back there, then we went back there more like training time, because you had to take them out for calisthenics, you had to take them out, we had classes on the weapons they carried, machine gun or rifles, and every day reserve or something like that. It was training. Every time we go in reserve, there was still some training connected to it. We never quit that. Even in on the line, when it was quiet, we had to see that the men were doing something, like they should be cleaning their weapon. Pretty important. Keep that clean. And just generally talking to them, and see how things are. Sometimes somebody come up sick, they got to go to sick call, and that took a little bit of doing. And anytime we had somebody with trouble like that, we had to take care of that. I mean, it was just the responsibility part of it, is what it was. That was about it. We like to, I had my bunker, platoon sergeant had a, what they call a CP bunker, which was usually a larger bunker. And sometimes it was placed right behind it. So the top of the mountain where the action was a lot of times, CP bunker was in right back of it, But we had communication with all the bunkers every night. There's supposed to be a guard duty type thing, so I had to be sure that every bunker there was somebody awake. Sometimes it's easy to doze off. We only 2 guys to a bunker, or 3 guys. I had to be sure that they were alert, you might say. So we had to do some of that every hour or so, or maybe 2 hours in a way. It was the guard duty over there for the men was really 2 on and 4 off. If there's 3 guys, you guard 2 hours and you sleep for 4 hours or something like that. That's how it went. If there's 2, it's 2 and 2, or something. But there's always somebody, you got to have somebody alert all the time. Because Chinese had a way of coming up without making any noise at all. You didn't know. We had patrols or outposts that were run over by Chinese, and they didn't know that they were even close to them. They were found still in their sleeping bags. That's bad. We had to, there's a few of them, they were killed right in their sleeping bag. And Chinese had a way of hitting an outpost and drawing back. By the time we got there the next day, they were gone, They're just that good at that. They were real quiet. They were better at it than we were. But we had all the advantage of firepower and air power and more artillery. They had a lot of artillery, but not as much as we did. There was more artillery fired in the Korean War, I've heard a couple of times, than it was in all of World War II. We had artillery flying over us all the time at night. A lot of it. Yeah, it's memories that start talking about things like that. The nights got kind of long sometimes, wintertime especially, because the darkness is dark at 5 o'clock or 5:30, whatever, and it's dark until the next morning at 7:30, 7. So it was about 12, 14 hours of darkness. We had, we strung concertina wire as wire in front of us where and you probably see that's wound up. And we had tin cans on it, and we had, like you say, mines in it, and tin cans sometimes get a little wind. You start imagining things. I mean, you'd hear it sound like Chinese coming, and sometimes the guys get a little quick on their firing, and you start shooting, and there's nobody there. And even a few grenades sometimes, but it was just a precaution, I'd say. Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you done since? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Since then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just worked at Legion here. I've been working here. I'm still doing a little bit. I take care of the honor guard, like I say, all the military funerals, and I take care of their bingo. We have a bar bingo. I do that. That's every Wednesday. I play cards every day. That's pretty important. With old friends. But I worked here, for so many years. It kind of grows on you. If you don't come up here, you kind of miss it.
Have you been back to Korea on a
Yes, a couple times.
Can you tell me about
Yeah.
that?
That's real nice. I was back there with Forey once. That was our 3rd Division. It was the 50th anniversary of the Korean War, I think it was. And our 3rd Division sponsored most of it. I think we had to pay for our own airfare. But everything else over there was all paid for. And we had a real good time. We were up in a Chorwan area where we were a lot of times, in that Iron Triangle area as part of Chorwan. And we seen a lot of nice sights in Korea, and it was really gratifying to see what they've done with the country. We left it in ruins. It was just flat, most of it. And you go back there now, and they got modern skyscrapers, subways, and when I was in Seoul, there was only one bridge across Seoul, across the river, there's a big wide river, and now there's 12 bridges, big 4-lane, all kinds of traffic, and it's a really modern. Compared to North Korea, no comparison. They've done real well. In fact, they're pretty strong as far as industry in the whole world. South Korea done real good. You probably heard just Samsung and some of the things they've done. No?
So how does it feel to have been a part of that?
Real good. The second time I went over there with the wife. And who else was it? It was, that's when before I went over, yeah. His wife too, Christenson. The first time was with another 3rd Division guy from our league. He's gone now. But the second time, the first time we were over there, it was on a Korean welcoming, and I was really surprised to see that too. It was nice, But the 3rd Division trip was the best one, with the wives and all the things they did for us, as far as sightseeing and things. We seen a lot of area we were in. I could see where we were. We were in North Korea mostly, so we couldn't get in there. But we were up to the 38th parallel, like where most of the main line of resistance was. And I could see the highest mountain in Chorwan there was where we were a lot of times. I could see it it's about 20 miles away or something like that, But I couldn't get on it. That's part of North Korea now. So it's real gratifying to go back there and see it. I'll never do it again now because I'm too old, but I did it.
So how did your wartime experiences affect your life?
Oh, I don't know. It's I guess I can't say it's really affected my. Like I say, I carry some guilt. I suppose that's affected my life. But no, I'm pretty proud of what I did. I mean, we all are. We stopped communism in that country. So that's something to feel good about. I don't have anything else as far as affecting my life. I guess I'm always thankful of not being wounded or killed, or I had a lot of close calls over there, and I am thankful that I got through what I did. It was a war that a lot of people questioned it, and even during the war, even during the time, I remember hearing people say that we should get out of there, we should get out of there. But it turned out pretty good, I think, with what happened, the way they handled themselves and the way South Korea is now. And do you ever see those pictures of how the bunkers, you ever see a picture of a bunker?
I haven't.
Yeah, just look at that. I got one there. They could take, we had 5 or 6 sandbags on top of each bunker. They could take a direct hit from a 60 motor and survive, But it took a lot of sandbags. But they saved a lot of lives.
So do you have any piece of wisdom or a message that you could pass on to younger generations?
I think of patriotism a lot. And I like to see younger people being more patriotic than what they are. Some of them are. I'm not saying everybody. But there are some that aren't as good patriotic as I think they could be. And that bothers me. But overall, I don't think we're going to have war like we had it before. We're going to have terrorists, but our war, like we know, or won't be that way anymore. We're going to have terrorist war, and that's bad. But I hope the younger generation can handle that. I'm sure they will. We we thought we did it enough that we wouldn't have this trouble, but it's always gonna be there, I guess. You know, we just can't stop it.